we're going to get into the scrums and what went down, I suppose, in Wellington, but also to a degree as well. There was a couple of occasions in Auckland where the scrum and the set piece just didn't go to plan for the All Blacks. And to help us along with that, we've got 50 Test All Black World Cup winner, Charlie Faumuina, to come in and join us. Charlie, thanks so much for coming on the show, mate. Appreciate it.
No, thanks for having me.
What are you up to these days before we get into the scrums, mate?
Yeah, I've just recently bought a business, so just installing garage doors, so it's just underneath that Dominator brand. And yeah, just doing a little bit of coaching with Sacred Heart and at the moment Auckland Storm. So
speaking of getting the job done, scrum time, the All Blacks obviously under a little bit of pressure, both on their ball and the Springboks ball. If we look at their ball first and foremost, from a problem-solving point of view, the quick hook from Takiaho and the ability of Wallace Satiti off the back limited it, but it really didn't allow them to have that platform to attack off. What do you think the key changes are, like, in terms of, I suppose, the scrum itself on their ball?
Slomac's just come back last week. Maybe he hasn't had enough time in the seat to be able to go against like a big pack like South Africa. And I think when they started him, you could probably, he's strong, man. He's solid. I think he just came in and was a little bit underdone. But yeah, I think for me, if I was in a situation like that, like I'll probably be trying to isolate Ox a little bit more, try to take him outside, keep him on my outside, and then have enough time for that ball to get to the back. So,
Charlie, I want to just take you back to what you said about having Ox on your outside. What does that mean exactly for a layman? How do you put him in a position of weakness?
Going more to his to my right side, trying to straighten him up a little bit more, because I think when he comes in and that little angle that he gets, he's just too powerful to be able to give him that type of advantage. It's too hard to try and hold him down. So just trying to take any advantage away from him in that pack is really crucial. So.
How important is the back five? You know, a couple of times you saw, I suppose, feet scraping rather than some of the settled platform that we sort of got in that last 15 minutes?
Obviously, the back five, that's your engine, and a lot of our power comes from them. And that connection piece in regards to the front row back five, that's really important. So, yeah, look, obviously, you got to give credit to South Africa, a lot of power coming through, but and putting that connection under pressure, but yeah, probably another work on the next weekend.
Is there a mass thing as well, Chaz? Like, we obviously had the methodology of selecting 3 locks and Tupou Vati playing at 6. That gives you a little bit more size and I suppose scrum first focused.
Man, obviously, like me playing in France, played there for the last 7 years, there's a lot of big men over there, eh? And I think with New Zealand, how we play in New Zealand, there's a lot of certain boxes that we have to fill to be able to play in New Zealand. Obviously, like the fitness, the speed, the strength. Those South African boys, they wouldn't have a 5-minute Bronco, but their first job is the scrum and one set piece. Give the referee good pictures that when it comes to 50-50s, yeah, he's going to reward the dominant scrum. And I think, yeah, at the moment, South Africa have got a lot of good pieces in their game that they can afford to have a lot of these big boys rolling around. But yeah, it just makes it harder for us when it comes to scrum time. So.
Is the focus there, you think, on those elements? Like when you play a South Africa or a France, the focus is there from New Zealand that we understand that you need mass? I suppose you can't just run these guys around these days.
To an extent, you know, like I think as a forward pack, we got to be a lot more physical to be able to contain these guys. When they get those easy runs in, it's just you're just going to ride them all the way back to your try line. So we have to meet them physically first, and then it's going to help us get a better result. So.
I've sort of laboured the point around when we win collisions, and I think that's what you're saying there. Everything else comes after that, but if you lose that, you almost, as you say, there's no way back really once that momentum starts after you lose that initial collision.
I always think when I was playing the ABs, like for a team to beat the ABs, they got to come through a 4-pack, and us as a 4-pack, yes, I feel for those boys in the ABs, but that's the only way you really get on top of the ABs is when you come for a 4-pack. and obviously South Africa, did it on the weekend. So
Can we look at from a positive lens, because there's a lot of hysteria around, we can't scrum after one or two games. Like, there is ability to fix it. You know, like in terms of the IOUs during the week, but the planning and the small adjustments, just to understand, I suppose, for the layman out there, the fine margins of a scrum and how quickly things can go from okay platform to gone.
Like, obviously there's some tough conversations and just little detail stuff. Like it is, it's just, and like, you know, like sometimes the lock feels like he's pushing hard, but our body position's out of whack compared to his prop, and that can really affect a scrum. So a lot of little things like that, it's really going to be, it makes a difference. So
it's interesting you bring up that point. We've had an email come through. In fact, this guy's emailed me 5 times now, waiting for his chance to get his email on. Chris Loader is his name. And Chris basically says, back in the day when he was playing in the 70s at Kiokio United in the King Country against Pine Tree, way back then, also played under Pine Tree. He says Pine Tree used to teach them to bind by the top of your mate's shorts. This made our backsides come together and gave us a wedge-like shape. It gave more power as you were pushing, but also pulling each other forward. Pine Tree would tell us that... Here we go. We're as much use as a limp dick if we didn't do it. That's pure Pine Tree meats. Chipper, tell me, is that how it's done these days?
Well, I think you need to have a really strong connection, but I think what Chaz is alluding to is there's a lot more focus in, I suppose, one side of the scrum and the other side of the scrum, and that connection all the way through. So not only your lock, but your flanker, and then the hooker and the 8 are sort of the ones in the middle that initiate all the triggers. But there is more of a focus, you'd say, these days, Chaz, in terms of working with your tight head lock and your flanker, versus the other loose head lock, and then putting a hooker either side and putting that pressure through in terms of that drill aspect?
Obviously a scrum is 8, but there's a lot of little connections inside that 8 that makes a massive difference. So yeah, it's exactly that. It's just, and obviously those are the conversations that they've got to have to fix this, and I'm sure they will. I'm sure they're going to get a reaction come next week's game against Australia that a lot of these things will be fixed. So
the scrum's advanced a lot in terms of position on the field, what side you want to get up. The 8 controls a lot of the triggers, so it's about them being connected with their prop first and foremost, and their flanker, and then the 8's head comes in, and he almost will control like a rudder almost which way they're going.
He's binding the locks more than the locks are binding each other.
It's his job where a locks focus is prop. They've just got to focus on that prop. They'll still have a bind, and it should be a firm bind. I've never been a lock, so I don't quite know how that works. But I think in terms of, I suppose, a method to the madness, it's more about prop. Prop lock is probably the most scrum thing in scrum training. Like, they spend hours doing it because of that connection's needs to be perfect, because you need, and I think if we use the scrum at the 65th minute, where the All Blacks actually did really well against the Springboks. So they got the hit and all their feet were on the ground and they went in unison. And that's what Chaz needs to feel, is his lock's connected with him. But when he extends and catches up, the lock has to extend and catch up at the same time. If that's slightly off or a foot slightly up, you can get taken like that. Especially against the Springbok pack, where mass is big, but also their technique is so strong.
Is there anything else that the Boks brought that maybe hindered the All Blacks slightly?
Yeah, I think there's just one area around on the All Blacks ball. One is, I suppose, South Africa's shape is perfect. Like, you want to go like a staircase, so you go front row, locks, 8, and flankers, and that's in a really good place. And then I suppose their steadiness. And they've all got their feet locked into the ground, and their legs in a position where they're not sitting too far back, but they're not overextended that they can't push. They're almost primed. And then it's the role Reinach plays. Like, he just watches Taukei'aho's foot, and he knows once that's up, the ball's coming in, and you can hear him just scream, and from that, it was just like, the way they fired, they were just like sitting there like predators, just ready, like they were just in the
revving the engine, waiting to put into gear.
Yeah, and it was like the perfect position. But it also, what it does sometimes for the opposition is it puts you in fool's gold. because you're almost in a good state and you think, oh yeah, no, we've got things under control, and then that foot lifts, whack. And that transfer of weight was exceptional, but Reinach was a big part of that. And when he was a little bit off, they weren't as efficient, but man, those early scrums, you can really hear him extremely, extremely loud. To be fair, I watched it without commentary, but it was impressive. And it just shows you that just the fine margins, and you just need everyone doing their job. And especially on their ball, I think he was a big catalyst. But also on South Africa's ball, you watch, I think it was, what did I make a note here, 53rd minute, the scrum, so it's South Africa's ball, and the All Blacks hit, and they chase. And Reinach's down there, and he sees that they're not in that square and steady position, and he just stands up, doesn't put the ball in.
Yeah.
Not illegal, just smart.
Yeah.
And they get the penalty for pushing early. You know, so like Reinach was on the job, and the role of a 9 is so crucial to a scrum, and he was just he was simply outstanding both sides of the ball.
So Charlie, if you look now towards the Bledisloe Cup and you look at the way that they might approach, is it a different style of scrummaging that you might have against the Wallabies? Is it a different approach to what you might be looking to do to an Ox and Nche? You know, like how do you tailor what they need to do to get success against a different team?
Yes, and obviously playing against South Africa, big reputation to scrum. There's a lot more pressure there in regards to them, but if those connections, like if their stuff is bone deep, they should be fine next time they come up against South Africa again. So.
It's bone deep. I just hear Steve Hansen ringing in my ears whenever I hear that word. It's bone deep. It's bone deep. Nice. Hey, thank you very much, Charlie. Really appreciate your expertise and coming on the show, mate.
No, I appreciate you guys having me, man.